Hey, MCE crew. The president, Joseph Robinette Biden, had a grand old time at our expense, literally and figuratively, the other night at the Correspondents' Dinner. Now, the Correspondents' Dinner is one of these self-congratulatory affairs that the folks in Hollywood and DC, they love so much. They love getting together over an expensive meal, uh, patting one another on the back, and they really love it if they can do it at the expense of either the taxpayer or the share owner, which is pretty much what happened the other night. So old Joe Biden, he just had so many jokes about us and, what's going on with the economy. And, since it doesn't affect him and, his, he found it funny.
Yeah, because these people have been so hard on you, which I don't get. I really don't. I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. Gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything.
Now, what you may not find as hilarious is the fact that diesel fuel prices are starting to spike. Well, they have been spiking. They're going up even further. And that's not good, because as we navigate these treacherous economic waters, they're becoming more and more so. There's something else that's out there navigating waters, and it's powered by diesel fuel. It's a container ship. Okay, so these container ships, locomotives, and the semi-truck that you see on the road quite often, all of those machines are involved in transporting goods to some store somewhere where you then will go and buy it. Now, of course, this is a very intelligent audience. If the price of transporting those goods goes up, then the prices at the point of sale have to go up as well. All right, so that means more inflation on top of what we're already experiencing. Now, I was in the supermarket the other day, and I got like 2 bags of stuff, literally, and this was not caviar and, shrimp. Okay, this was simple stuff. And it came up to $50, man. I mean, like that. The most expensive thing I had turned out to be a rack of spare ribs. And this wasn't organic spare ribs. It was just some Smithfield spare ribs. Okay. So we're feeling it. Now, let me just walk you through something real quick. Gasoline prices are increasing almost daily, pinching the wallets and pocketbooks of nearly every American with cars. Okay, that direct cost for gasoline. Even if you don't own a car, of course, if you take taxis or Ubers, or if you are someone who has a limousine come and pick you up, there's still a price that you're paying for that gasoline indirectly. As bad as the news is about gasoline, diesel prices are surging even more across the country. Today's truck stop retail diesel prices hit a new record of $5.32 per gallon. Since February 1st, national truck stop diesel prices have increased by $1.57 per gallon. That's since February, okay? So February, March, April, 3 months later, and we're up $1.57. For an owner-operator whose truck gets 6.5 miles per gallon loaded, this equates to a cost increase of 24 cents per mile. Now look, we used to own a trucking company, and you got to keep those trucks, you got to keep them loaded, okay, with freight. You don't want to be in a situation where you take something somewhere and then you got to deadhead or go hundreds of miles in another direction to pick up another load, because you're burning fuel and there's nothing on that truck for you to be, making revenue off of. This is why Amazon's logistics setup is so genius, because they minimize the deadhead. But when we were in the trucking industry, of course, now the way we were situated, we had fixed prices most of the time because we'd agreed to contracts with people like, or organizations like Exide Batteries and Phillips Seafood, and we couldn't just renegotiate those daily, okay? But we could renegotiate them, semi-annually. So to the extent that these carriers are able to do that, then that, client Phillips Seafood, Exide Batteries. If they have to increase what they're paying for freight to ship freight, they're going to pass that price right on to you. To many Americans, including politicians, I think more so politicians than regular Americans, diesel prices are so removed from their version of reality that they often dismiss the importance of diesel to the U.S. and global economies. And this is why I say that when you have an election, okay, once you get past the primary and you've got a Republican, you've got a Democrat, maybe an independent, Green Party, or whatever, whoever's left that's going into that general election, they need to be required to take a macroeconomics course, college level, okay, before they can go and proceed into the general. They need to get at least a B on that course, okay? Because this is why, one of the reasons why we're in the shape that we're in, because too many politicians do not understand how the economy works. We've got the mayor of Baltimore. This individual has never owned a business. He's never worked for a corporation. He doesn't understand how the economy works. He just thinks he does. And he's running what is essentially a multi-billion-dollar corporation in the city of Baltimore. A lot of politicians out there like that. He's not alone, sadly. Diesel is the fuel that drives the economy and leaves major industries vulnerable to cost shocks. Without diesel fuel, the U.S. economy would collapse in a matter of days. Our supply chains would completely shrivel almost overnight. Trucks use it to haul our goods across the country. 97% of the trucks, the big rigs, use diesel fuel. Now, they go on and talk about how Elon Musk had said he was going to bring out his truck, the Tesla truck, but it just hasn't happened as of yet. Trains also depend on diesel to transport products across the country. Almost every train in the country depends on diesel for energy. Our electricity, this is a double whammy. So we get 22% of our electricity from coal, and that coal is transported by train. So what do you think the electrical providers will have to do if these costs for diesel keep going up? They will have to come to the table with more money, and then you'll be realizing a rate hike somewhere in the near future. Even though these guys have to go to the Public Service Commission to get the rate hike. Usually that's just a rubber stamp if they can demonstrate that prices have increased. Okay, they're running a for-profit business. Diesel is also critical to our imports and exports because 80% of the ships that transport products via the ocean are powered by diesel. Okay, you've seen these huge container ships. Okay, they're using diesel in most cases to get around the world and bring you, goods from China. A world without diesel would mean that our grocery stores and restaurants would run out of food, retail store shelves would be empty, and hospitals would run out of medical supplies. So look, we talk about how we get into these price shocks with food. And we talk about growing your own, storing your own. You can't do that with gasoline because you don't know where it is. You don't have a mining operation. You can't store massive amounts of gasoline. You might have a 5-gallon jug for your lawn equipment. Most people living in a suburban area. If you're rural, you might have a little bit more than that. But what can you do? Well, it's quite simple. Again, you have to be really discerning, and you have to take all of the emotion out of the choices you make for elected officials. Because look, this whole crisis is generated by elected officials, most notably those in the executive level of the federal government, Joe Biden. These prices are going up because what we've seen is a constriction of supply thanks to Ukraine, that whole imbroglio, but also thanks to the fact that Joe Biden has said that basically we can't drill here in America. We can't explore for new energy opportunities here in America. Oil, which is what diesel fuel is derived from, it's a global market. So we produce some here. Sure, it goes out on the global market and creates more supply. More supply with the more supply with a stable amount of demand gives you pretty decent pricing. But the minute that you constrain supply and you keep demand where it was, then it's like musical chairs. There are fewer chairs, so someone's going to pay more. Um, so this is where we are. You have got to, and I know this crowd. I read the comments. This crowd is typically sounds conservative, and I do not believe that every issue that plagues America is solvable via politics. In fact, very few issues are solvable via politics. But the ones that are affected by politics are massive, like, fiscal, monetary policy, decisions on who's going to be able to drill, and, things of that nature. Economic issues, defense issues, those are definitely, they definitely fall into the realm of politics. All right, let's switch gears for a second here. Now, we're always talking on the channel about redefining wealth, okay? Developing a mid to late 21st century definition of wealth, considering the way in which our economy has changed and is changing. So I noticed this article that's kind of in line with that. The world order has changed. Here's what it means for your net worth. Part of a disturbing trend over the last few months has been one of financial institutions and governments stealing other people's money in broad daylight. Jeff Dorman wrote a worthwhile piece on the collapse of the LME, as well as other associated topics. LME is the London Metals Exchange. For a second, remove your biases. To those lucky enough to have made fortunes investing in digital assets, ignore the euphoria. For those hell-bent on trying to prove digital assets have no purpose, think objectively for a moment. And let's just look at the facts. The Canadian government shut down banking access to many of its citizens over a protest. A decision to invade Ukraine by a single leader of a nation, Vladimir Putin, created hundreds of billions of dollars in losses in weeks, thanks to the almost 50% decline in the Russian stock market. And it has led to rising oil prices affecting billions across the world. The response to the Russian attack on Ukraine by Western allies included shutting Russia off from the international banking system, SWIFT, a decision that is already leading to bank runs and bank failures. Even before this, bond and equity markets were roiled by decisions of a handful of non-elected Federal Reserve and central bank officials who essentially control the fate of global capital markets. And this author says, in my sheltered world, it took over 3 days just to transfer money from one of my U.S. bank accounts to another, despite U.S. banking being nothing more than a ledger entry in a spreadsheet. I have a friend who came to me and said they wanted to withdraw $4,000 from their bank account, their money, right? And that when they went into the bank, they were there. Like, it became a big production. And this is a big bank. This is one of the well-known consumer banks. It's not like it was some little rinky-dink bank and they only had $3,000 in the vault. This was a big bank. And it became a production. They, were doing things behind the scene, and he said that he could tell that, they were making entries and things like that. And he felt really like almost guilty to access his own damn money. Okay. Now, what's happening is that when you come in there and take out, let's say the fractional reserve limit is 10 to 1. We've gone over fractional reserve lending before, where the Fed says, hey, bank, for every $10 you take in, we'll put it at, again, 10 to 1. You can lend out $100, okay? Creation of money out of thin air. So let's say it was at 10 to 1 in this bank. So he just took $40,000 away from them, away from that bank in terms of lending opportunity. And they made a big deal about it. And I'm sure that they've got systems that report it automatically to all kinds of 3-letter agencies within the federal government. And that is why we talked about on an earlier episode Looking at other financial institutions, your money doesn't have to just reside in a bank. It can be a credit union, it can be an insurance company. Okay, there are other places where you can hold your money. But let's go on here because this gets interesting. In other words, when you donated to the truckers up in Canada, if you did that, when you did it, let's say it was legal, then Canada came in and wrote the law and they made it retroactive. So if you did it when it was legal and now it's illegal, now you're subject to the law, so you could get your bank account frozen. GoFundMe attempted, with the coercion of governments, no doubt, to steal $9 million worth of donors' money. And it wasn't until the threat of lawsuits from the governors in U.S. red states saw them back down and refund the money. Rest assured, next time they will have measures in place to deal with this. Then we have Western governments blocking Russia from SWIFT and then proceeding to steal the Central Bank of Russia's reserves. Think about it. Western governments confiscated the assets of money of rich Russian citizens. They labeled them oligarchs. They could label you an oligarch too. Take your money because they can use a word and put you on CNN and just, put that word above your picture and now everybody hates you. No one needs to critically think. You're an oligarch, don't you know? Then we had the London Metals Exchange canceling 9,000 trades worth $4 billion, effectively using the money stolen from regular traders to bail out a Chinese tycoon. So they go on to say, you got to take a look and really consider what you own, okay? Do you own your property? Well, do you? Your state, even if that property is paid off, your state could just come in and declare eminent domain. Look up Kelo versus New London, where the county of New London, Connecticut, seized property and took it from one. They didn't build a road with it. They didn't build a school with it. They took the property from private owners and they transferred it to other private owners. Okay. Up until that point, Americans had thought eminent domain meant the government can take your property if it wants to do something, some government stuff. Okay. But no, they took it from one private owner to another. And here's why they did it. Because the homeowners, in that case, homeowners lost, by the way, when it went to Supreme Court. The homeowners in that case were paying property taxes, but when they transferred their property to, the big developers, what they had planned would have created a greater amount of property taxes being paid rather. So they stole the property pretty much of these individuals. So what can you do? Well, you do have to, be in a situation where you have to understand that, first understanding that your wealth could be seized, okay? Based on your political views, based on whether or not you want to do what the government says, okay? Maybe you don't want to get a certain medication that the government wants you to get, based on, whether or not you want to submit to certain energy policies, okay? It's all based on what the government wants you to do. You do what they want, you're fine. Maybe, because administrations change. So you could be on the straight and narrow with your government today, and then a new government comes in, and now, what you were doing and what you were happy with, 2 years ago, well, new boss is not so much like the old boss, and you got to conform to a new set of rules you might not be comfortable with, and that might put your property in jeopardy. So hold on to property. I'm still a big advocate for owning land. But as we see here, you got to diversify. So owning one parcel of land is probably not going to be enough, okay? Not if you want to insulate yourself from potential government action. Land being a hard asset, land that you can either rent to somebody, you can produce something on, like fruits, vegetables, timber, or you can have some animals grazing on, Okay, Bill Gates doesn't have to be the only player in the farm game, and I'm not even sure how active his farmland is, because from what I see, it almost looks like the guy's trying to starve humanity into agreeing to eat pink slime and insects. And we did a video on that. So hard assets, okay. And again, that hard asset could be in the form of real estate we just talked about, could be in the form of your own businesses, okay. That's a hard asset. Also, the metals, gold, silver, um, things that you can convert into any currency, okay, at the drop of a hat. So that's all for now, guys. But we're going to continue to monitor this, because people are starting to question what we thought of as wealth and the definition of it. So it's evolving, okay? And we're going to monitor that, and we're going to evolve with it, because when you evolve, you survive, you thrive, okay? Human beings have been able to evolve since we've been here and, master our environment. The dinosaurs weren't able to do that. And where are they now? All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon. To learn more about how you can achieve financial independence, check out these videos we recently posted on the Money Changes Everything channel.